Hi everybody, I'm Shane Benzie from Running Reborn. Now we're going to be having a technique challenge with some of the guys from Running Reborn. Justin and Sam are going to be pitting their wits and their movement against each other over the next month, practicing the Running Reborn techniques, and we're going to kind of judge them and see how they're getting on. We're going to look at different aspects of their movement, and the first one we're going to be looking at is foot contact. As you will know from the Running Reborn coaching site, we're looking for a tripod landing. They've been out there practicing, they've sent me their videos in. I'm really excited to see those videos and see how they've been getting on. Let's take a look. Now we gotta make a
I'm Justin from the Running Reborn team, and I'm looking forward to taking on Sam this week in the Running Reborn Technical Challenge.
Hey, my name's Sam and I'm part of the Running Reborn team. I'm looking forward to taking on Justin in the Running Reborn Technique Challenge. So come on Justin, let's have a go. See me on top, I never fall. I speak my truth and turn it to law. Do it for the drive, you know it's really my passion. Never gonna stop me, really I'll make it happen.
Okay guys, so the Running Reborn Technique Challenge, week one, how was it?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun actually. It's you know, it's great to sort of put all the you know, our platform and all our sort of videos into action and buddy up with someone like Sam. Get on the phone to him. Obviously, he's in London. I'm in the Cotswolds, very different, but just sort of, you know, have a go at this technique challenge. And yeah, it's been really good. What have you found it, Sam?
Yeah, really good to go through the videos and get into that a little bit more, understand movement as a skill. I really enjoyed the tripod bit. Pushing off from the inner tripod was something I just hadn't thought of before. So yeah, good to get into.
And definitely for me, again, I mean, you know, is the learn to love impact. You know, I just think that whole, you know, hitting the ground and springing off, and obviously, hopefully you're going to see that beautiful gazelle movement in my video.
I'll be the judge of that. I'll be the judge of that.
So, but no, it's been really good. But yeah, just, you know, quite nervous to see your feedback, but...
Well, I mean, what was it like videoing? I mean, did you look like you thought you were going to look like on the video? Because when I'm working with runners everywhere, they're often astonished to see themselves on video, and things often look very different to what they assume they're going to. It's actually really easy to video ourselves, but we just don't do it, do we? So for both of you, you know, was it enlightening or was it a good thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's very enlightening. I mean, it definitely, I feel that I run probably a lot lighter. I feel like I'm a lot lighter when I run, and when I actually watch the video, I actually look like I'm actually quite a heavy runner. I don't know how, you know, I just feel like a kind of maybe a bit more of a slogger when you actually see it on video, but when you're running, you feel sort of lighter. So I know the iPhone is not always the best kind of, you know, camera, you know, wide angle.
That old chestnut.
Yeah, but it definitely, no, you feel, and it is really enlightening, and it's definitely okay, so I have improved on that, and that looks good. And so what about you, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. You really feel like you run completely different. So it's the perception of movement kind of thing now is really interesting, because having watched myself back, I'm now thinking about those movements, and kind of one thing I noticed, I really pull my legs up at the back, and I think that's maybe not so efficient. So just thinking about those little efficiencies has made a difference already for me. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I think, you know, yeah, video is definitely the most powerful way to understand what you're doing. And I use some very clever technology with my research and coaching, but you cannot be literally just seeing yourself move. So yeah, it's a really good thing. Actually, I think I recognise the park. I think, Sam, were we in the park where the pop-up workshop was? I think I remember seeing it.
Yeah, got to go back to the local haunts, because as you see in some of the other videos, I've got the good old A406 down the road, so I prefer to go the other way to the park there.
yeah, excellent, good. Okay, yeah, so let's start to have a look at those videos then, and kind of work our way through. So footfall is the challenge for this week, yeah, and we know, obviously you guys will know, and certainly from watching the videos, that a tripod landing is essentially what we're after, yeah. And just to refresh your memory as well as everybody else's, a tripod landing is essentially a point on the heel, a point just underneath the ball of the foot under the big toe, and one under the little toe. So it's a tripod effect. That's what we're after. What do you both think you did? You've obviously watched your videos. Yeah. How well do you think you did before I can? Because it's your perception, and you're becoming your own coaches here, essentially. So what do you think you did?
Well, I reckon that I'm, you know, just from the way my shoes wear out, I know that I land on the front and slightly to the right on my feet. And so I think I'm not getting the full spring effect of landing right in the middle of that tripod. So yeah, I believe you're going to say that I'm way too far forward, and I've been thinking about it in all the runs since. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if you picked up on that, and if that's the...
Sure. Justin, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's the one thing, the foot I've always tried to work on the most, because I know when obviously I first came to see you years ago that I was a classic heel striker way out in front of me. So it's definitely been always working constantly when I'm running to cycle those legs and get that tripod landing directly under the body. Now, I think being right-handed and right-footed, I think the right side's okay, but I think the left is still not, it's still kind of maybe just landing a little bit on the heel and not quite coming down as much on that tripod on the front of the foot as I should do. Yeah.
That's interesting, because obviously I've seen the videos, and I obviously have the advantage to be able to slow them down as well. So that's really good. So actually, you're kind of right, but slightly wrong, but you're heading in the right direction. So we'll kind of talk our way through them. But I think it's worth just remembering why we want that tripod landing. Yeah, because it's one thing to say we need it, but we really want to know why. So the tripod. So what I'm really keen for you guys to think about when you're training is your foot, your tripod landing. Your foot is the interface between you and the ground. If you get that tripod landing, you create huge amounts of stability, because that's what tripods give us. You've got 250,000 nerve endings on the bottom of your foot. If we get that tripod landing, those 250,000 nerve endings are going to send us up loads of really exciting information up into the body, telling us how hard we hit the ground, what the ground feels like, what our spatial awareness is, and what our perceived rate of exertion is. Really, really important. The tripod landing also allows the foot to work as a dome. The foot is actually shaped like a dome. If we land on that tripod, that dome effect dissipates the impact. Very, very important. It dissipates it and allows us to turn it into elastic energy. And also, we have something called the plantar fascia on the bottom of the foot. If we land our foot correctly, this beautiful piece of elastic on the bottom of the foot allows us to be very springy. So really, really important about getting that tripod landing. So Sam, yeah, I think you're right. I think your perception was right, and actually watching the videos were right. You do land very much on the forefoot when you're running. So it's very much here, and the heel doesn't really ever kiss down properly. It comes down a little bit, but really everything is on the forefoot. Now that would mean that we certainly wouldn't maximize all of those nerve endings on the bottom of the foot, because they're placed all over the foot except for on the heel. So you're not going to get as much information. You're not going to use that dome effect on the foot as well as you could either to dissipate that impact.
And interesting the way you said one foot more than the other, Justin, because my right, and I wonder if I lead with that or even lead with the other one. But yeah.
Yeah, so interestingly, once I slow it down and have a good look at it, you're actually more on the forefoot on your left side than you are your right. Both of them are on the forefoot, but the left is more acute. Yeah, it's more acute. So did you make a concerted effort to make that happen? Do you think? Because I think when we spoke even before the challenge, and you thought that might be the case, that you would be landing, having been to the pop-up coaching session and watching people, you felt that's where you were. So you are landing on that forefoot. Is that something that you've decided to do, or is that the way that you've just found yourself moving?
No, not really made a conscious effort to ever run on the front of the foot. I had a slight plantar fasciitis issue at the back of on one of my heels before, and I wonder if that is a kind of legacy injury that's always there in my mind, that maybe means I'm worried about that pain or feeling it in the back of my foot. But that's the only reason I can think that might be.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's really interesting because if you do injure yourself or you have some kind of contraindication, quite rightly so, the brain kind of jumps in and saves you from that and makes sure that you compensate so that you don't keep landing on the part that hurts. But what's interesting is long after the injury has gone, the brain will still keep compensating. So you could be, you know, you could fall over at 9 years old, sprain your ankle and carry that movement, that compensation forever. So the brain never wakes up at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning and decides, right, I'm gonna check and see if everything's okay now. It doesn't experiment. And that's why analyzing yourself, videoing yourself is fascinating, because sometimes you can see that you're moving in a way where you're compensating for something. If you actually video that, change that movement, you're actually showing the brain, actually, everything's fine. I can make this movement. And the brain will then allow you to do it. And that's one of the great things about analysis. It allows you to dial back, build the movement back up and reset your software. It's incredibly important. It's incredibly important. Okay, interesting. And just so, Justin, what about yourself? You know, have you worked hard to make that tripod landing happen up until now, or did you feel that?
It's definitely something that I'm always conscious of. You know, out of everything when I'm running, I know you obviously head up in your arms, but I definitely think that my foot landing and where my position of my foot is probably the most important. You know, to prevent that injury. A lot of stuff I'm doing is always cross country muddy, and I'm very much trying to cycle those legs to make sure that foot is underneath the body. So I'm getting that kind of good impact using the natural elasticity and not putting all that, you know, pressure back as a brake back up inside. So I think, you know, I think it's getting better.
You started because I know, you know, because I've worked with you before we were actually kind of teamed up, and I think it's fair to say you were a heel striker. Yeah, so you've definitely you've come from a position of actually landing on that heel on a heel strike. I mean, you've done a good work on it. To be fair, it's much better. Much better. So interestingly, with yours, Justin, when you're running, your left side is good. The left lands on a tripod really well. As pretty much as good as it gets. On the right side, interestingly, every now and again, you just go over actually onto the front of the foot. Okay, so maybe slightly overcompensating because you don't want to land on your heel. So the right side just lands a little bit on the forefoot, so you don't quite get the tripod on the right-hand side. So that's interesting.
That's interesting. I thought it was the left.
You did, absolutely, So, I mean, it's interesting because there's 250,000 nerves on the bottom of that foot. You would think that you'll know exactly what's happening, but actually they can trick you. And again, this is why video can really help to help you understand what's going on. So, so both good, but I think really, you know, when we come to talking about the tripod landing and really who's closer to it, because it kind of is a challenge. So we need to judge that. I think, Justin, for you, you're closer to it, I have to say, at least on one leg. You've definitely got that left side very good, and the right is pretty close. Still needs a little bit of work. I think it's a little bit of overcompensation. So I think what you're actually doing is plantiflexing. So plantiflexing is dropping your toes down. Dorsiflexing is sticking your toes up. I think you're slightly overdoing it and coming down onto a plantiflex situation on that side. So that does need a little bit of work, but good, very good, I have to say, good.
So just to confirm that's 1-0. Sorry, Sam.
That's one battle. Of course, this is a war, so we will see. So for Sam, so as we said, Sam, very much on the forefoot now. I think we've demonized heel strike, you know, as a running community. Everybody's worried about heel striking. And so a lot of people are actually landing on the forefoot now, as opposed to the heel. I think that's actually worse than landing on the heel. So we really do need to get that tripod landing. Now, Sam, you know, you're a good runner. You know, you do some really good stuff. You could be forgiven for thinking, well, you know, if it's not broken, I don't want to fix it. I don't have to fix it. But I think if you've got that interface landing better with that tripod, it would give you a lot more stability. It would help to reduce your ground contact time, and it would help to give you more spring as well. What do you think you can do to affect that? Because we kind of want to check, you know, part of this is the challenge to see, you know, who's doing the best and how they're changing their form. But what do you think in your mind you can do to affect that?
I feel like maybe my foot is coming down too quickly, and then I'm landing with the first point before it's able to straighten out. So I wonder if lengthening my stride is a good idea, because then by the time the foot comes underneath me, I'd have straightened it out. When I've seen some of the kind of elite slow-mo videos, they've got this amazing ability to put the foot out in front of them, then the foot comes down and it just plants flat. It's almost like a movement like that rather than just singular. It's within itself. I'm not sure, would that kind of thing work?
Well, I think what I see with your landing is you are landing, as we know, on the front of the foot, and it's almost as if it's probing out in front of you. Okay, so really what we want to do here is we want to get that tripod landing, but the last thing we want to do is get that foot coming down earlier in the stride, because that would then shorten your stride, and we don't want to do that. You know, we want to lengthen your stride and get your foot landing well with this tripod. So I think something for you to really think about and practice here before we look again is that when you leave the ground, we're thinking about pushing off from that inner tripod. And then as you leave the ground and you go upwards and forwards, I want you to really think about leading with that bow in the chest and that bungee cord effect. So getting lots of good forward trajectory within the air that you've created in your stride. And as you're moving through the stride and through the air, I want you to think about circling and cycling that leg back underneath you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Because I think it's just landing a little bit out in front of you. So if we can get it back underneath you, that will allow you to start creating that tripod landing. And if you maximize that forward trajectory within the air in your stride, it means you can go longer. You can have a longer stride. But if you're always cycling that, circling that leg back underneath you, it doesn't matter how long your stride is, you won't overstride because you'll get that leg back underneath. Now, you may have to think a little bit opposite. Actually, I think there's a little bit of plantarflexion going on there, even if it's subliminal or not. You may have to create just a little bit of dorsiflexion just to level out the fact that you're landing very much on the toes. So your first port of call is to get those legs circling back underneath you. Let's see where that takes the foot landing. And then you may have to affect that by maybe 5% by doing a little bit of dorsiflexion, just by lifting those toes up slightly as you come through.
Right.
Again, more video to see what you're doing so that you can kind of understand it. That's the best way. But try and feel, both of you, you as well, Justin, try and feel what you're doing so that actually when you re-look at your videos, when you've redone the videos, you can actually have a feeling against the visual. That's the most powerful way to learn. You learn nothing by videoing yourself and then watching the videos a week later and not really remembering how you got there. It's really important to body sense what you're doing and then look at the video so you can put the feeling against the visual. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, good stuff, good tips.
Obviously, the spotlight has been on Justin and Sam here with looking at their foot contact and their technique. But it would be great to get everybody posting theirs and let's help each other. The power of the group, incredibly important. Probably the biggest thing that I've come across when I'm researching and traveling is how we're good as a group and how we can help each other and push each other to better things. So let's get everybody joining in and let's sharing each other's footfalls and how that foot is landing. And then we can all help each other. Excellent. Good. Okay. Well, yeah, Justin, I have to say, yeah, that was 1-0. You have done well, mate. Could be beginner's luck. I don't know. But I think what would be really interesting is, that's my thoughts, but it would be good to put it out there to everybody on the site and see what their feedback is. They might have some different ideas, or they might be able to relate to what you guys are doing. So it would be good to maybe put it out to everybody and see what they think.
Excellent. Sounds good. And,
so what are you working on next week?
I think it's posture.
Okay. Did you sit up slightly taller in your chair when you said that?
I think it's running posture, but yeah, well, it should be good. We're looking forward to that. Balancing the old plates on the head.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'll look forward to the results.
All right. Cheers, Shane.
Good luck, Sam.
Thanks very much.
Take it easy, guys.
Go, go, go.